Hey folks, this is me, Vishwas Nair. I'm the host of this DevOps chat show. And trust me, this is one of the series that I started. It's an humble attempt from my side to understand okay, this is what software engineering was all about. And later on, what next? It's all about like how can I get myself the chance to understand okay, this is what DevOps mean to every developer and an operations guy because it's always that humble attempt where we always try defining this is the purpose of DevOps in an organization. And let's just demystify what is it all about when a software engineer tries to get inside the DevOps world and when he hears what was DevOps all about, what was his experience. So I welcome Sandeep Roy. Thank you so much for giving this DevOps chat show. Means a lot, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Vishwas. Thanks for me on the show. Uh, so today we'll have some more drill down on DevOps according to my experience
Yeah.
and my knowledge.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, let's just start with this question of like what is
Yeah,
software engineering to you today? Like it's been like 10, 15 years of experience. There's always that definition that you wanted to give like okay, this is what software engineering is going to be for me. Like first day of your career. And so what is software engineering to you today when you see after listening to the definition of DevOps? Like what is it all about to you when you hear about software engineering and you know the definition of the DevOps.
yeah. So software engineering, if we take an like definition wise, it's all around like whatever the designing, development to deployment, like all the phases of software, starting from the requirements gathering. So all in all roles come into picture into software engineering, like from the business analyst or all the stakeholders basically who are involved into the software, from the requirements to the last stage, that is deployment and maintenance. This is all the phases of software engineering, forms a total group, or you can say the stakeholders make it a software engineering group. And but the main crucial role I will say is the requirement gatherer, the business analyst, and the software developers, and the person who is deploying or maintaining the applications after going into live. So these people are the key, we can say the background players or the main backend system of the software development system. So this is overall software engineering perspective from my side. I have been into this role from couple of years, and as per of my experience, a software guy or a software developer or software engineer, if you say specifically software engineer, so from my side, like whatever I know the definition of software engineer and versus software developer. So software developer is someone who only focuses on software development perspective, but engineer is someone who is focusing around everything, like say start from the requirements, breaking down into estimation, or like say helping into estimation, or we can say thinking from the engineering perspective, like from the deployment perspective, or from the DevOps perspective, we can see the new trends. So this is the software engineer's role currently, because software engineers don't have to focus only on the development activities or the say coding languages and everything, but he has to think from every perspective when we think about, say, like example, if we take an example of current trends any apps, like say example big basket or zomato. So if you go for there as a software developer or software engineer, so then you just don't need to know the things on technical side, like, but you have to know like something on the product side or deployment side or DevOps side. So this is overall picture of a software engineer in my perspective in today's world.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because like over a course of time, that definition changed because we started defining hardware using software. Like it was always that. Like software is going to be that key ingredient there. So now talking about SDLC and ALM, there's different ways in which different companies strategize for that. Like there is an there's always that rollback mechanism that we always design towards, and like we always have that one key need to like how can we define this and that in our environment, how can we have this also in our environment. So what is it all about when you talk about SDLC and ALM for the developers who know code gets pushed to the DevOps environment? Like how is it defined today when there is a touch of DevOps which is going inside the same code which is written by a software guy who doesn't know what goes behind the scenes of automation of the same code that he has written, like complete CI/CD pipeline, this and that. What is it all about today when you define SDLC and ALM for the environment that we are talking today.
Yeah, right. To be more specific to this answer, I'd like to cover the previous days of like DevOps introduction or deployment, these new phases of deployment that are into the trend, like including cloud and DevOps integration. Basically, digitization is happening now, digital transformation is happening now. But prior to that, before the cloud days, there were some on-premise deployments happening and all. So there was a separate team itself who's doing deployments and handling the server and integration and everything. But nowadays the trend has changed completely. Like if you see from the say if you're applying for an interview or if you see a JD of an interview of a software developer or engineer or senior developer or maybe higher levels, you have to have knowledge on DevOps trends or DevOps tools. They will ask you some questions on deployment strategies, like how your current organization is doing deployment, how they're planning deployments, what happens exactly in the server environment, what happens if something goes live, breaks something on live, then how will you handle that bug? How you face such situations in your experience? So this is something new. I'll not say it's new; it's old thing only. But the developer has to focus more on these things also, because the trend has changed. Because suppose example, if I am a developer and say obviously a cloud will come into picture if I'm a developer. Everywhere you go, you will have to have a cloud. Say be it a front end or a back end developer. Backend will mostly have for cloud, but front end person should at least know the concepts of cloud. And when cloud comes, DevOps automatically will come, because the deployment strategies has changed because of the introduction of cloud. So obviously you need to have knowledge on those things, like how the things will be deployed. So example, now the things has changed, like you can do faster deployments. You can do say basically when I saw in my previous experience, the deployments were happening quarterly in some projects which are critical projects. Some projects were having monthly, but now the trend has come where you can do a daily deployments. You can do like say weekly deployments. You can have weekly runs. We can do weekly migration, because the trend has changed where you can do the deployment faster. You can roll back it easier in case something goes wrong, and you can identify the issues. You can trace the issues. Basically, the collaboration and communication because of these new trends of DevOps and deployment strategies has changed, which makes it easy to developer as well as for the operations person and overall stakeholders, easy to have the overall picture of like what is happening in the background. Yeah. So this is a new picture, I will say, which has changed overall in the deployment strategies and development strategies.
Yeah. And also, like, what was your first introduction to the DevOps? Like, when you entered a room full of people talking DevOps this, DevOps that, and that's the worst thing to happen to any person, right? When I entered that room, it was like, why are they doing too much of DevOps, DevOps, DevOps? There's nothing, right? Learn this framework, that framework. Everybody knows how to learn this, how to do that, but like strategizing the way in which that software needs to move to a deployment stage, I think that's the biggest key ingredient. Like that's the key point that you need to keep in mind. Like forget the fact that it's going to be bash script. It's a sexy looking bash script, by the way. It's like it's an awesome way of understanding, okay, this is what Linux command meant to be back then, and now I'm automating it. So what was your first introduction to the world of DevOps? And also, when you started perceiving this tech today, what was your definition altogether? Like, did the software engineering really help you, or else did that mindset of entering a new world help you in order to build yourself for this DevOps hungry world?
Right. So my introduction to DevOps happened. I don't remember the year, but when I got introduced to cloud things like AWS. So basically, AWS is a niche technology, I'll say, who introduced the cloud to for people. Then came Microsoft and other guys. But I got introduced to AWS first. So that time, I found like concept of a DevOps. It was trending. So I explored that. I learned about it. So, but I found that DevOps is nothing new to me, being a developer with some experience already. Uh, it's something the process or the culture they have introduced, but the things are same. Like it's something where you are taking care of server environments, you are taking care of your existing production environments, production issues. Only thing they have introduced some processes and so collaboration technologies or tools by which they will make it easy. So a developer, as a developer, it was not that much tough for me to understand the DevOps things or DevOps. But yeah, so there was a learning curve where I have to learn some new terminologies, or I have to explore some new things, be it to some tools like say Docker, Kubernetes, or basically containerization. Because as these things introduced, DevOps and cloud was introduced, the new trends of development was also introduced, like cloud native, then we can say containerization, right? So though basically a developer now has to learn these things because the deployment strategies have been changed, the development strategies have been changed. Because if you think about cloud native or say microservice oriented development or containerized development, so then you have to do some script development. You have to develop some script, like as you said about some bash scripts. So those things you have to develop, like YAML files and everything. It's not only the responsibility of a DevOps person, but a developer has to contribute something to on that also. So this is something introduction to me from the DevOps perspective was, and then how I started learning about it. I started watching some videos and doing some hands-on practices on these tools. And then ultimately I got a chance to work in my career also, like in my experience in professional work experience also. Uh, Basically, it's not the case that every client has go to these new trends of deployments. There are some clients who are, there are some people, there are some basically projects which are there into the old technologies or old server on-premise basis also. But yeah, the things are started rolling, and nowadays it's basically in digital transformation, everything is going, everyone is going into these DevOps trends and cloud deployment, cloud development things. So I got a chance to work on those things at my projects in the professional experience, where I got introduced to the Azure DevOps. Basically, we use Azure DevOps for the check-in, check-out thing. What we do, what we did before into the TFS, the Team Foundation server system. So that got directly migrated into the Azure. So the repos were directly moved into the Azure. So that was something direct hands-on, I'll say, real-time experience that I got into the Azure DevOps. Then the client asked us to create the deployment pipelines. Then there were things like where we also got introduced to the this commit push pull things, which was new to us. But yeah, it was similar. Like if you compare it to the TFS where you do check in check out, it's almost similar. But the things have changed because now it's distributed version. It's not centralized or one person can do at a time. With multiple people can collaborate and do check in check outs, basically push pull. And there will be later on there will be some master branch where you'll do the integration. I faced several issues like merge conflicts and everything. It was basically in TFS or in the previous version control system, it was not that much a problem because there was like centralized or say one person check-in check-out strategies were there sometimes, which was not that much of issue, merge conflicts and all. So this kind of issues I faced when going into the DevOps, and it was a learning basically how to handle those issues and all. As I got a practical experience to work on that, and then there was a after this implementation of this repos and everything in Azure DevOps and building pipelines, say basically building pipelines for creating the artifacts for deployment of like say end build product where you deploy onto the servers. So that was there. So that was again challenge not from the front end but from the database side. It was a challenge for us because mostly we have seen a database where we do the offline or say we can say if suppose you have stored procedure or database object where in the I'm talking about the client where I worked on that the strategies, they were having the deployments or the environment wise repos, say dev, UAT, production, and all those things. But now we have to create a solution where we'll manage everything from that solution. Say if you are doing some change into the storage, so say if you are doing some change in the SQL, the select query or update query, a procedure, or say you're creating some trigger and you're doing some updates on that. So you have to do the everything onto that solution and then push the solution to your dev environment. So this was something new that I got to learn from that DevOps perspective. So basically, it was a learning curve, and it was interesting also, something new in the career and in the technologies.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That experiment of learning something new, I think probably that's the best move that you can do. Like, The shot was there when it was there in your head. You wanted to learn it, the shot was there. Don't hesitate to learn. Like how I do the webinars. Like if I wanted to learn Scrum, I go reach out to a Scrum Master. Please do that. Don't worry about that. After all, it's just a mail that goes to him and it just stays in somebody's repository, not even in his repository, by the way. That's what it's all about. So learning, right? It's that one magical move. Like it's going to define your entire infrastructure. Like what do you want in the future world? Like how can you convince your client? Like Scott Hanselman says that, like, if you want your boss to know this technology is good, build a community, gather him and say him that, hey boss, this is also working. And that's the best move that you can do. And also, like, your experience in facing chaos, that production issue is always there in our mindset. Like we should not run into it frequently, but it's inevitable. We run over it. And of course we have rollback mechanisms to get back to that production environment up and running. Of course, it's like it's all the code just pushed at one place, and it's just like, where can we find that next chaos? Like where is that next vulnerability? Like CVE will be raised. We are trying to DevOpsify everything. So what is it all about when you're experiencing chaos for the first time? Like, and also facing chaos for a very long time, how has it really made you just be like, it's a normal day, it's a chaos that we just facing? So what is it all about when you are facing chaos today in the industry?
Yeah, so chaos is part of a software developer's or software engineer's life. Every time when you deploy something or you develop something, from the logic perspective or from the understanding perspective, because you must have seen several memes going on viral where client is asking something, developer is doing something, and the project manager or the end user, means you are basically your leads, are imagining something. So that happens, and that's a part of say every industry. Or say it's not the 100% say, or we can say 100% exact things that are getting deployed or developed. But with these new trends, I think the things are in scope, and everything is we can say monitored, or it's easy to track the things easily in faster ways, because the DevOps has introduced a way to make faster deployments and give, you can say, the agile way of deployment, where you can easily go and do a faster demos, quick deployments, give quick demos, we can say, where client will come to know, or your stakeholders or your team leads or your managers will come to know, yeah, exactly what is happening from the developer's perspective, or from the basically development stories perspective, what is getting developed. So iterations are, say, we can say the changes can happen easily. So from the chaos perspective, I have faced several chaos in my old, like before getting into the DevOps or the cloud things, or on-premises things. I have several chaos I faced. So coming to the, I can give an example of where I faced. So there was some bank where we were doing the developments for them. There was some, like, say, a year of long project was there where they wanted to develop some tools for their business people. So basically, it's for financial portals that they wanted us to develop for the intranet for the basically business users. So the client was not having an environment where everything was in sync. So it's not easy to push your client directly into something new process. You have to chase them. You have to tell them that what is important, what, how to, basically you have to drive them some solution or to some process. So that took time for us as a company or as an organization or as a person, or even to our management. But things fall into place ultimately after a year or so. But before that, a year's journey was where we faced issues where, suppose example, JavaScript file is there, which has one version in production, another version in UAT, and another in dev environment. So obviously, as a developer or a new person, if you're coming into that environment, what will feel like everything is synced. We'll take a development version, we'll do some changes, we'll push to UAT and UAT to production. But what happens? Suppose that file is consumed by, say, 10 modules into that internet application. It's a common file, a common util file is there, where you're doing some, say, string concatenations, or say date time comparison, those kind of things, and you are adding some function on top of that to that common util file. And maybe the dev version and product version is different. And as it was a traditional development deployment thing happening, somehow a developer is not doing comparison, or a deployment person is not doing comparison, because you don't have access to production code itself. The repos are not synced properly from the production to UAT. Or suppose someone has directly done in some night, there's some issue, and someone is doing a change and pushing it to production and forgot to sync it to your UAT or dev environment. So obviously the production version is different, and you don't have access to that code. So these things happened where you are doing some deployment and the code which was in production is not there currently. It is there in some repo, but it was not synced to your old or we can say the lower environments. So that's where the chaos happens. Like you are trying to introduce something new functionality, but that is introducing a bug also, or which is causing another application to break because that function or that utility is not available in that file. So this is just an example where this kind of things happens. So then you have to bring a process like where you will make sure that the person who is deploying or person who is doing the merge and code push, he will do the double checks or he will make sure that code and production system is in sync, production to your dev branch, everything is in sync, at least till the UAT at least. So because when a developer is doing sync with UAT or say QA, he will have some fresh version and he will have some version which is in sync with your dev code, and it will not impact other modules or say common util files. So this type of chaos we faced, and mostly the database side also. What I told you, like most of the cases, database like relational RDB means they don't have that much of version control inbuilt to them. Nowadays, because of DevOps, it's happening, but in previous on-premises, the version control was not that much perfect. I've seen several clients where the version control is not that much perfect. So you have to take product code, I have to compare it to your dev or to your QA, and they do the merge and then do the push and everything. So these things happened only because of the process, I will say. It's not something a developer's fault or the person who is deploying that person's fault. So it's not a people fault, it's a process fault, which you have to prove to the client to bring a process, or you have to justify to client to process to organize or do the like new process introduction. So this type of chaos I faced mostly by real life experiences.
Yeah, cloud environment is changing like inevitable. It has to change because like there is that new adaptation that goes in the industry. There is a new way of saying this is what industry wanted. So I wanted to know what is the perception of cloud today when we are experiencing different. Like AWS gives you a different experience. Azure gives you a different experience. At the end of the day, it is still the same old file system, Kubernetes, function apps, or like it's serverless at the end of the day. So let's forget the fact that it's Lambda functions here and things like that. It's serverless at the end of the day. So what is the experience of facing different cloud environments to you? Because most of the times, it's not like one project, one cloud, one kind of a script. It's like different ways of understanding. Okay, this is what YAML should look like here. This is what YAML should look like here, and there is always that one one fight that happens between all the developers, like should we use this or should we use that. So there's always that reason where we actually have a different experience, like okay, this is what we need to work towards and this is what we need. So what is it all about when we are experiencing different cloud platforms today, and how should an industry perceive this trend which is going on to the world? So what is your views on all these kind of experiences that cloud is giving us?
Right. So I'll pick up that part of your question where you're saying like coming to an agreement from the developer's perspective or the management perspective, which tool to choose or which say technology or cloud, say, or any tools, basically tools and technology to choose. So that quarrels happen basically from developers perspective, from management perspective. But again, it's something where say example, I remember one experience in my projects where if you are going to win some project, you are bidding something to the client. So then you have to justify those technology first, to why you are bidding this technology, why you are suggesting this when you're doing proposals. So you have to tell them that why this technology is important. And obviously, there is some history also. Example, if your client is mostly Microsoft based, where they have everything like Windows servers, they have already the like Team Foundation servers, where you're doing like version control and everything, and they have some databases which are relational Microsoft SQL Server database. Then it's easy for them to go to Azure, I will say. It's not something where you'll go and judges them AWS to go. But obviously, it again depends on the requirements where what client wants in new in next phase to be developed. But it's something on the background side. Like say, if you are open source, if you have Java and everything in place, which is mostly a previous, like now Microsoft has gone open source. That's not an issue from the cloud perspective. But in previous era, or just a mentality. I say in the industry, I've seen that whenever you are Java, you have some say MERN stack and everything. You basically people adapt to the AWS. If you have Microsoft stack of technologies, you go to Azure, right? If you have some Linux servers kind of thing, you go to Pivotal. So PCF basically. So this trend I have seen. Even if you check some industry requirements, you check some JDs, or you see some case studies of projects, you'll find this kind of things where the clients are already having some Microsoft based of technologies in their place already in house on premises, and they're migrating to the cloud, which is Azure. Yeah, cross things also happen, but very rarely I've seen. At least it's my understanding, or it's my observation from the industry perspective. So it's something that basically background makes you to shift to that particular cloud trends, or the deployment trends, or basically DevOps trends. But now with the with these cross functional things, like if you see AWS or Azure, there is nothing as such differentiating factor in between them. Coming to the services part, you can have Kubernetes in Azure as well as in AWS. You can have containerization in the same places. You can have same set of technologies where you have code commit, code build in your AWS, and in Azure also you have GitHub. So Git repos are there, GitLab integration, everything is there. Azure DevOps is there, so you can manage everything. So from the we'll say integration perspective, or from moving from on-premise to cloud, or to the basically cloud-based DevOps things, it's not that much complicated to choose a technology. And even it's with a multi-cloud or hybrid cloud the things where it's possible that I'm not seeing such case studies, but I'm sure that there must be such case studies, or there some must be some clients where they're using the hybrid cloud environments where they're using AWS as well as Azure. Maybe some features where they are having some say set of technologies or set of tools where they want to go for AWS, and some they may want to go for Azure. And even the transition from one cloud to another is very easy because of the set of tools and the things are available by which you make your infrastructure as well as your code move from one cloud to another. So that I don't think would be that much we can say a factor to choose as much as technology is possible. But apart from these features, I think cost and everything will also come into picture when the management, or basically, yeah, from the management perspective, or from the I will say the CIO perspective, or the person who is handling the technological things, he will check that those also, like cost optimization and cost calculation, like who is giving you better offers, is AWS, is Azure, and then that must be a factor to decide like which cloud or which technology or tool to opt for. Because I have seen several clients where they are before the Microsoft going open source, they were only focusing on PHP things. They were focusing on the open source things because they were having mentality like, yeah, this ID is free. If I buy a developer, if I hire a developer for say X number of years, a contract basis, I will have these tools free. I don't have to buy the Visual Studio license. I don't have to buy these things and everything. But now it's easy because it's open source everywhere. So it's not. I don't think it will be that much concern to move to Microsoft or to any other proprietary technology which are now going into open source thing. And coming to the developer's choice, yeah, developer will have a choice where your client is directly asking you to choose the technologies. Suppose client is saying me, yeah, Sandeep, this is something I have to develop, and we have to develop, and what's you think? Like there are several tools available. Can you evaluate it for us? So then it's a developer choice. Like developer can come with some use cases where he can evaluate two, three tools, which is he's thinking that it's good for this kind of requirement. And example, I have faced a situation where we have to bring into a picture say uh, end-to-end workflow system. Like example, TIPCO we have there are some several open sources like MuleSoft is there. So when you can create an architecture or the or basically workflow of your we can say the API or basically you can integrate a workflow. So there you have to go and analyze that technology, those tools sort of technologies. You have to do the demos or POCs and justify client on the selection. So this is something internally will like a developer collaboratively have to decide do the agreement on those things, like which tool to select, and then accordingly present it to the client with the technology, with the advantage and disadvantage of each of the things, and how this tool or how this technology will fit into their requirement. So yeah, so this is to answer in broad manner to your question.
Yeah, that dilemma is always there, right? Where can we fit in this technology with that technology as well? Like Azure is available in some regions, AWS is available in some regions. Where can we really get that entire cloud efficiency out? That's always there. So, what is the definition of DevOps to you according to the cloud hungry world? Like everybody needs cloud. Let it be hybrid, public, nobody cares. Like private cloud is also once upon a time was a booming thing where everybody had good amount of money but like less amount of knowledge like how to keep it more secure. But today everything is more secure. So what is it all about when you're defining DevOps governance policy and sort of a security which is incorporated into it? So what is it all about when we talk DevOpsifying the governance policy and the security in the cloud today? And also like how should a team adapt to the new workflow or the life cycle of the software management or else the cloud infrastructure that is transitioning in an organization? Because one time that's an investment, but the second time it's an experiment that we do. Like it always starts with an experiment only, like something like, okay, a client has a different requirement, how can we experiment with this cloud, or else how can we use a private cloud that they have, attach a public cloud to it, like a lot of dilemmas. So what is the definition of governance policy security according to the cloud hungry world, and like how should we adapt to the new changes that organization brings to us over a course of time?
Yeah, right. So I will say like if you compare DevOps and cloud, like how DevOps and cloud evolved, but I will say DevOps has come into picture because of cloud only. It's my opinion. Because of this cloud era, DevOps is booming. Because now, example, if you take from the application developers perspective, microservices is something booming nowadays. Microservices development, so basically, microservices comes with containerization and deployment trends that are happening, taking advantage of cloud native things. So basically, it's the cloud which has given boost to DevOps and the DevOps trend basically. So I'll say that DevOps is something which is getting boom because of cloud, and yeah, obviously on premises also there we have DevOps, but cloud is something which is where DevOps are taking into picture, where we have Kubernetes, Docker, the containerization things happening over in the cloud. And coming to the part of like how to, as you said, like how to justify to the client to choose a technology or to push to choose a technology. So that I, as I already said, it's a cost factor also. It's something where you experiment. Exactly, as you said, exactly. But it's something. Suppose how to move to the DevOps, like as a beginner or as a say organization. So it's something where, suppose, example, I'll give you an example where we were given the Azure DevOps from a client. Like they have already bought the license and everything was there. So their CTO has decided to go for Azure DevOps. But now, how to adapt as a developers, as a team to this thing? So that was a learning curve for us. But it's something where it was told to us by client, like this is something we are going to introduce. The TF is going out now. We're going to Azure DevOps. So what happens? Like in the team itself, we have distributed the things like you will do this thing, you will do this feature, we learn together, we demo to each other, then we demo to client also, like we have now the capability to do work on these things, because you have to give the confidence to client, like yeah, so if there's something new coming, how will cope up with this change or cope up with this transformation. So this learning, we did it internally. We showcase it to client. Then client got, then obviously then the client got the confidence. Like yeah, this transformation happened. This because the training and everything is now available. Like if you go to any organization, they already have Udemy license, Udacity, and everything in place. So training is not
And
that much
even
tough.
scalability is not even a factor today. Like it's lift and shift is happening without seamlessly knowing to us. Like it's happening directly. So yeah.
Yeah, right. So scalability wise, yes, obviously. So, but the transformation that I was telling about. So this is something a developer has to learn and showcase it to the maybe their supervisors or their leads about the new technology or new transformation that is happening. So that's what our experience as a team or as a my individual journey was during the transformation. As you said about scalability and everything, that is something which is a very we can say innovative thing about cloud, the scalability and we can say portability. uh, Basically the hypervisors and everything where you can scale everything. It's very easy for you to, like, if you take a DevOps engineer or a software developer today, I have attended one session. I don't remember the session, but a couple of years back, I attended a session where the guy was saying that a software in maybe in the next future, a DevOps person as a DevOps, there will not be a role as such a DevOps. A software engineer, someone who will do the DevOps because that person will manage everything from your infra, from your code to the deployment things, everything. Because if you say when we you must have come across NOPS thing, so that concept he was
Knobs.
explaining. Yeah, so NOPS is somewhere a developer will do everything, right? So that's something the we can say the feature or the advantage of cloud where you have everything in control in place. Where a developer can take a control of infra and scalability, or we can say availability. We can decide by sitting in say Mumbai or anywhere in India where to deploy, in which regions to push, and what instance size you want, what basically the requirements, the hardware requirements that you want to you choose for your basically the infra, like say virtual machines or EC2 instances. Or talking about serverless, it's very easy because Azure functions or Lambda functions where you can just define the size or the scope of how many simultaneous requests you want to process, and it's very easy from cloud perspective because the number of requests that are getting processed parallelly. Previously, it was a load or a burden to a developer to think about the multi-threading or say multiple concurrent connections or concurrent operations. But because of serverless and everything, it has, I'll say, the eased the life of a developer, even from the deployment person's perspective, where they don't have to think much about the scalability and everything. Yeah, obviously scalability and everything will fall into picture. Thinking about too much huge load, like say millions of subscribers or say crores of subscribers watching at a time, because you have to think from that perspective, like how many images or how many concurrent sessions will be there and how your infra will be supporting or coping up to that load. But if you're talking about middle tier or say an average scale application, it has eased the life of a developer because of cloud.
Yeah, that's true. Security is like defined in a different fashion. It's not a piece of cake to a cybersecurity guy today. It's like everybody has a stake in the security. Like a software engineer has it, a FinOps guy has it, ChatOps guy has it. Like everybody is part of the security today. So I think thank you so much for such great insights, by the way. And you talked a little longer than usual. Because this is what we want, because this is what we want as an insight, and this is what we want as an people who are going to be behind the bars of that huge chunk of GPUs and the CPUs that is going to be there, the server rack. Don't know what is going to be the fate of it. Quantum computing might come up and just shatter the way in which we are thinking about the hardware today. So yeah, I think thank you so much for giving such great insights on the classical compute part. Means a lot, Drew. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vishwas.
Yes, let's just end the broadcast.